Okay. I'll move it over here. So yeah. Um, guess I'll wait for people to get in before I start. It's gonna be one of those very slow paced kind of things. Um, we'll just wait. I mean, no one's really in right now, but I mean, TikTok's probably pushing it out. It's 5:03. We'll see how long we go for. It could be 20 minutes, could be, it could be like an hour before we get anyone in, but go. Um Man, only if I was a popular streamer, man. Only if I was a popular streamer, dog. Dude, I could get like so many people in the live. I'm gonna put my actually, you know what we're gonna do? Hold on one second. It might be hot. Oh, that's not bad. Move my candle right down there. Yeah. Yeah, now you can see the candle. Now you can see the candle in the background, bruh. Look at that. Look at that view. Look at that beautiful candle right there. Shit. Welcome, welcome. Um, I got my camera up here. That's live streaming. And all that stuff. I mean, I guess I can go ahead and start. I mean, people will just join whenever. But yeah. Welcome to the first official episode of the Cold Truth Diaries crime true crime analysis, where we go over the stories that I find interesting, do a little research on them, and we, you know, just make it fun, make it interesting. Today's episode is going to be surrounding Barry Sherman and his death. Um, his death is very superficient, and I want to start off by saying that normally I don't have a soft spot for billionaires, but the material surrounding this is very interesting. So I do kind of want to like really go over it and really talk about it because I find it very interesting. I don't know about you, but we got one person in the chat, so I don't know. Let's just get started. We're best time to start is now. Um, so just a little summary, like a quick 5 minute summary of what's going on. Barry Sherman and his wife Honey Sherman were found strangled to, I guess, death. I think that's the right litigation, right? Like, what do you call it? What's the word? Not diction. Yeah, we'll say diction. Diction's so much simpler to say. But they were found strangled to death. Actually, I have my notes over on the other screen, by the way. The specific cause of death is called lig, lig, ligature strangulation. A little bit different than regular strangulation. The way they really classify them, I think, from my research, is like normal strangulation is done like hands wise, and this was done via belt. Like whoever did it, like obviously strangled them with a belt, and it's different than say like a lynching because with lynching it's about your body weight. So when you're dropping from say like getting hung, that's probably gonna get me banned too, but I don't care. But whenever you get like, I guess I don't know what's the appropriate term when you get positively choked. I guess I don't know what the term is, but anyway, you drop in your thing and your body weight is what suffocates you. This was done via like someone sitting behind and like you know you know what I mean, just doing all that. Um, but anyway, so he was found strangled, and a lot of investigators originally thought it was a murder suicide. When in reality it wasn't. Um, it was actually a double homicide. Eventually, they did find enough evidence to say that it was indeed a double homicide. And there's a lot of theories floating around this because he was a very powerful individual. He was someone who had a lot of wealth, a lot of influence in Canada. So I mean, it makes you really like want to like, I guess I don't know how to explain it. Um, Makes you really want to like dive deep into like what it could be. I mean, there's a lot of like plausible theories out there, and then there's some out there ones that I think I want to touch upon. I don't know. Some of them might be original, some of them might not be. Y'all can let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah. So going over some of the background behind Barry. And again, I got my notes right here on it. I got about page and a half, not too much. But from what we know from him, from as early as age 10, he was a very big workaholic. He was someone who just worked a lot, knew the value of work, knew the value of, getting stuff done. Um, in fact, I think I was reading where his father had brought him to the zipper factory that I think his father owned. And he was like putting the stuff in the boxes so fast that he was actually outbeating the people who. Oh, you fucking bastard! Sorry. Um, he was out competing the people who actually were paid to do the job, and he actually got mad at his father because his father said, "Well, I'm gonna double check this," and he was like, "What the fuck, Dad? Like, what the fuck, Dad?" So, but yeah, he was really mad at his dad, but that kind of inspired him to like just value work, like value like being like a workaholic in a sense. Um, but anyway, so he goes to university, goes to University of Toronto. Did I write down where he was at? I forgot what he got his degree in. I don't want to really go look it up, but he graduated top of his class at Toronto University. Then he goes on to the University of Massachusetts of Technological Institute. Fact check me on that. But he goes there and he gets his master's and doctoral degree in, I guess, whatever the fuck it was, like some type of engineering, some type of pharmaceutical practice. But before all this, he actually he worked for his uncle who owned Empire Laboratories, which in Canada they made a bunch of like generic pharmaceutical drugs. So like when you go to Walmart or you go to like, your local grocery store or whatever it is, and they have those generic drugs, those generic name brands, like instead of it saying Tylenol, it says, oh, what is it called? That they were making fun of Trump for it. I forgot what the official name of Tylenol was, like, but like they're making fun of Trump because he couldn't. He's like, it's the because it apparently makes your kid retarded, but but honestly, it doesn't. So, um, but I forgot what it was called. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it's like you get those names with it. That's what Empire Laboratories made. And he worked there in between college. So he would go there in the summer, work his butt off, come back, and continue his education. And he kind of just fell in love with it. Really, I mean, so much so that whenever he graduated college, he got his degree, or whenever he got his degree, he got Empire Laboratories handed over to him. And we start to meet our first potential suspects in this story. I will refer to them as the Winter Children or the Winter Cousins because they were his cousins. And they were a little bit younger. They were, I don't know how old each of them were at this time, but they were under 21. That's important to the story because whenever he got access to, all those, when he took over the Empire Laboratories, which again is the drug manufacturing company, he, oh fuck, I'm doing this all. I have my notes right here. He was told to give the kids, like, once they reach a certain age, they're allowed to start working at the factory. Then I believe when they got to be 25, they could buy shares of the company. Like I get 5% shares. That was like their inheritance. So Barry ends up selling the company. He ends up selling the company and kind of screwing over the Winter kids, the Winter Children, or the Winter Cousins. We'll just call them that. So yeah, they screw over the Winter Cousins, and he opens this thing called Apotex, which is this same thing. It was a generic drug company. If you're just joining, we are discussing Barry Sherman, his life, the mystery surrounding his death, and all the theories and possibilities behind that. That was disgusting. Oh no, it's on my phone. Call. I'm gonna check my phone real quick. Give me 1 second. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It says no sound detected. I don't believe that. Um, but yeah. So anyway, yeah, he was supposed to leave 5% to the orphans. That's the Winter Cousins. Um, so what he ended up doing was, instead of being like, I don't want to give money to these peasants, these poor people. Actually, they weren't poor; they were kind of wealthy, but I want to give money to them. He was kind of greedy. So he ends up selling the company and giving it over and kind of rebranding it, calling it Apotex. Because of this, the original agreement was null and void. Keep that in your memory bank. We'll get back to that later. But anyway, so he goes on, he keeps building this company. Now, one thing about building a lot of these generic, let's see. Yeah. One thing you got to know about these generic drug companies, just in general, is a lot of them seem to. It's a tough competition. It's a very rigorous competition, to say the least. And, you know, he always was in court, like constantly was in court, constantly was going through all these litigations and really challenging a lot of people. Like, when I mean like he was in court, he was in court like all the time. Like, it was almost like a second home for him. And he just made a lot of enemies. Like, he was very aggressive. Like, he was a big workaholic. Like, when he met his wife, Honey, they would go on vacations, and like Honey would go out and with the kids and be like, "Oh, we're gonna go have fun," and Barry's like, "Oh, I'm gonna stay in and work." No, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, rich people play golf. He didn't even play golf. I mean, it's just he was such a workaholic, and he was just very aggressive about what he wanted. He was he was a go getter. He was definitely a go getter. You know, and he battled a lot in court through a lot of these different medications, different drugs, being patented. Like one of the people that he actually, one of the entities that he really went against was the actual Canadian government. A lot of the patents that he proposed definitely didn't like line up with Canada's so-called need for, you know, the government. But yeah, the government was a big entity. Other drug companies were big entities of him. So that's suspect number two in all this, the big drug companies. Because again, he fought them very difficultly, especially in the courtrooms. So let's see where else. Let's see what else I got. Yeah. And the government even was quoted as saying that it cost millions in taxpayer dollars to fight Barry Sherman in court. Like, yeah. Let's see. And so this goes on. So he's building up his company and stuff, nothing too crazy. Um, in fact, let's see, do I have this written? Is this after? Do I have this written down somewhere? No, but one thing he also did was he built when he was building his house. Like when I mean he was in court all the time. Like he was really in court all the time. Like whenever he was building his house, he actually ended up suing the contractors so many times that the initial investment he put into the house he got back from court fees and stuff. Like he was a dog in court. Like he was someone who wanted to get like every single like ounce of dollar and ounce of like everything out of everybody. And to be fair, I mean, he was good at it. I mean, you kind of got to do good at what you're good at. So I'm not even like, hating on the guy. I don't like the fact that he's a billionaire, but I mean, game recognizes game. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and it goes on to the point where this was his little game. He would just scam people, not scam. Sorry, he was not a scammer, but he would like go take them to court, win these court cases, win a lot of money. But here's where the story gets interesting. In 2011, the Winter cousins decided to sue him. Nothing new for Barry. They allege that because he was providing them an inheritance, providing them sort of an allowance, that Barry, he kind of owed them money, and they kind of wanted retribution for him selling Empire Laboratories all the way back in the 70s. So they sue him, and Barry takes him to court. And in 2017, a couple months before the incident, the judge on the case ruled in favor of Barry and said that the case, I forgot what the exact quote was, but they ruled that the case really didn't have a lot of ground to stand on, a lot of legs, a lot of that stuff to stand on. So they dismissed it. Not a big deal. A lot of people didn't describe Barry as someone who, was a nice guy. Some people said that, but a lot of people describe Barry as a shark. To the point where one source said that the words I have to describe Barry are unprintable. Take that what you will. But the one thing that was redeeming about him, he was very charitable. Despite being an atheist, he gave a lot to Jewish organizations. Again, take that what you will. But his wife was Jewish, and he just was an atheist, but he did give a lot of money. So that is a little bit of a redeeming quality about Barry. Barry wasn't a complete asshole, but he did give a lot of money away. He was very charitable. In fact, before I think after his death, he his money was he was planning on giving a lot of money before he died, and his estate actually ended up giving, like, the children of Barry ended up giving a lot of his estate away. So there's that. Um, but yeah, not a lot of redeeming qualities about Barry. I mean, there's some things that you could point to and be like, oh yeah, Barry wasn't that bad of a guy. But at the end of the day, Barry was who Barry was. Now, got to set up a couple things before we really get into the meat potatoes of all of this. Like, that was just the backstory to kind of give you a little detail on what was going on. If you're just joining, we're talking about Barry Sherman. We talked about his backstory a little bit. If you missed it, you can go ahead, check it out on my YouTube channel later. I'll have the full replay up there. But Barry was selling his house. That's the first thing you got to note. He was building a house. I don't know where he was building it. I think he was building it a little bit farther away or closer to the border. I don't know. A lot of fun fact about Canada. Actually, 80 to 90% of all Canadians live within 50 miles of the U.S. border. So if you didn't know, now you know. That's because most of northern Canada is very uninhabitable, but 80 to 90% of them all live within 50, 60 miles of the border. Or it's like 100 or something. It's like they live like here's the border. They all live like within this area going like this on the border. So, yeah. And Barry was living in Toronto at the time, and he was planning on moving. So, obviously, he was doing a lot of work on the house, trying to make it look ready and stuff. So, a lot of people were moving in and out of the house at the time, which is something you got to keep in mind. Because when we think about who might have done it, who might have did the deed, we got to look at all possibilities, right? And the way I look at this, and I will get into like the actual like crime and all that kind of stuff, and like what really went on, or not what really went on, but like what they might have thought went on, because again, they don't know who's done this yet. That's kind of the point. Little mystery, little discussion, like, ooh, we're gonna throw some theories out there, but yeah. So one thing, you guys, so he was selling his house, and given the backstory, he had quite a few people who kind of were wanting to do it to him, right? Quite a few people who could definitely be possibilities. But yeah, so he's selling his house, and one night an intruder comes in, possibly multiple. We don't know. They ended up doing the deed, unaliving Barry. Some sources say there's a couple different ways people figured this out, like what happened. One thing was that the wife, Honey, she never really used her cell phone. Just something she never did. And the fact that there was cell phone usage from her was a big red flag. Like, she wouldn't be using her cell phone, so why is she using her cell phone? But another thing was they didn't really lock a lot of these doors up as well. So there's that. And again, he has a lot of enemies. So someone else could have hopped in. And it could have been anyone. Like, there was a lot of people moving in and out of that house in that couple of months that they were selling it before the deed happened. In fact, the way they found him was a realtor was showing a couple or someone the house, and they happened to go down to where they're to the pool area where they were at, and they found them. They found Barry. Hold on, let me see if I can get a belt. I'll kind of show you. I'll kind of describe how they looked. That without making it familiar. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find the belt. Okay. So Barry, he was. I'm gonna scoot back a little bit because. So imagine like the pool's over here. All right, let's say the bed. My bed's the pool. Barry had the belt like this tied up, and then his legs were crossed over. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if I can move my microphone thing out of the way. His legs were, oh God, I can't do this. Crossed up like this on the thing, and his wife Honey was like this kind of back. They were back to back. Just know they were back to back on the pool deck. And like the realtor and them found them like this. And so when investigators started looking at the case, they they were like, "Oh shit, what the fuck happened here?" And at first they thought it was a murder suicide. But as they dug deeper into it, they're like, "Nah, it's not a murder suicide. This looks like a homicide. Like this looks like someone intended to do this." Now, what's crazy about the whole thing when I was researching it is the fact of how they were positioned. Because normally, if this was just some type of like random killing, right? This was some random hit. They would just leave the bodies where they were at. They wouldn't like, you know, they wouldn't do what they did. Like the way they were positioned were definitely like someone put them like that. Like they were trying to send a message somehow. Now, what is that message? I have no idea. I don't really understand the motive of it being like a message of some sorts. I could definitely see it being like a humiliation thing, but not a message. Not like they're not trying to go after somebody is what I'm trying to say. Like they're not trying to be like next time it's going to be you type shit. But I think it was sort of a humiliation thing. Like it was some sort of personal vendetta against the Shermans. And what's crazy, what threw me for a loop for a second, is the way they were positioned resembled a statue that the Shermans owned. I don't know if I can pull it up. Maybe if you see the clip on maybe in post edit, I'll put the clip up what it looked like, what their statue looked like, or maybe on TikTok I will. Who knows? But yeah, the statue itself looked very it looked eerily similar, which leads to one of three possibilities. The first being is that it was someone close to the Shermans who had access to the home, who knew where the open points were, and they saw the statues and they're like, interesting. The second being is that it was someone who had just broken in on their own and they were like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna, and then they saw the statues as they were breaking in and they're like, that's interesting. And they did it. Third possibility, just a total coincidence. They were going to do it regardless. Total coincidence that it happened to end up like that. What's up, Kaysen? We're going over Barry Sherman just to give you a little context. He died and he was a billionaire. Very interesting. No one's figured it out yet. But anyway, so it was just like that threw me for a loop. When I was researching it, I'm like, okay, so there has to be something with that. There has to be something with the statue. Because obviously if this was just some random person doing this, you think Epstein is still alive? No, I don't know. I don't have any opinion on that right now. But yeah, so that really threw me for a loop with the statue thing, because it made me think at first it was a contracted killing. I'm like 95% sure that it was a contracted killing. Um, Obviously, because I don't think that anyone who wanted to do it was like any wealthy person that had a personal vendetta against him, like wanted to like, do something to it against it. So, all that. But thank you, Kason. Is that how you say your name? Like Kay son? Is that how you say it? I don't want to be rude. Or is it like Kasen? That'd be cool. Um, but anyway, so yeah, it's just the way it all played out. So it makes me think that it's someone who had access to the home, could be someone close to the family, could be someone who was just randomly, you know, at the scene. Definitely could be someone who what I think it definitely was more contracted, but someone who hired someone to go do it. There is debate going on if it was if it was a solo individual or if it was someone who was in a multiple group. I think it was a multiple group. Reports do say that it could have happened at once, or it could have happened at different stages. Like some of it could have been like they got attacked at night, and if they got attacked together, like if Barry and his wife Honey got attacked, then could be that. Thoughts on OJ Simpson? I think he did it, but anyway, um but let's try sticking to. I don't mean to be like. I mean, you can comment whatever. I don't really care. But I mean, if you have any thoughts on Barry, I would love to hear them. But if not, I understand. It's, not everyone's cup of tea. But um, but yeah. So, and what's interesting is with Barry. Oh God, you're making me lose my train of thought now. Oh yeah, about it being together. If it was together, it had to be. I mainly just watched the Netflix series on People. Okay, yeah, pretty good. I think it was on HBO. They actually did cover this case in 2023, I believe. Someone did a TV documentary on it. So, I mean, if you want to go check out a very interesting case with a lot of mystery, a lot of, just twists and turns with it, I would definitely recommend doing this case because it's a very interesting one. It gets your wheels turning a little bit. A lot of high speculations. Anyway, so I don't think it was a solo attacker. I think it was a group of people. Now, from my research, a lot of times people like to hire locally, mainly because they know the spots and all that kind of stuff. But I want to say, because you're not just dealing with some NPC, you're dealing with the 12th richest man in Canada, right? The people who would have contracted this had money. Like the dude, Barry himself was worth I think at the time of his death, he was worth $4.6 billion. You're not dealing with some chump changes. You're not dealing with chumps over here. You're dealing with some, pretty radical, like pretty people with money. You're dealing with people with money. So it would make sense that they would get the best of the best to do the job, because obviously we haven't figured out who it was, and the way it happened is throwing police for a loop. They do say they have someone of interest, but they haven't released it, obviously, because they don't want to just throw out accusations. They have to have solid proof and solid evidence that that they did do something. And there is sort of speculation, but we'll get to it later. But yeah, the Barry Sherman case is very interesting. Very get your wheels turning, get your thoughts going. But when it comes to, the the method of the death. It is very much odd in itself too. Mainly because again, it's the way they died, like the way that they were positioned after they died. The way he was strangled to death with the belt. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Dubs up in the chat. But the way he was strangled like that with the belt and the way he was positioned like the statue, it made it seem like it was someone who knew what they were doing. Like this wasn't just some random thing. I will get into the theories on who I think it was, and this goes into my thing. But yeah, and I got the notes over on my other screen. So if you see me look over, I got some notes on the other side. But yeah, it said both had ligatures around their neck, which was the belt. They were positioned in a seated position, which was in like how the statues were made. And if you want to go look up the statues and how they looked, you'll kind of see more what I'm talking about, and all that. And it's just the way everything looked. Let's see. Yeah. So one thing, so the reason why I think it was someone who had somewhat of access to the home is because at first I thought, okay, these statues must be famous, right? That maybe the Shermans, because again, they're worth a lot of money. Maybe the Shermans knew a famous artist, and when they bought this, it became kind of new, so people knew they had these. But apparently, they were very not much well known. What's up, Matthew? Oh, bye, Matthew. Whatever. Um, and the Shermans owned these for decades, so anyone who has been in and out of the house knew about these statues. So and again, the house was being put up for sale, so someone could have easily either walked through, saw the statues, been like, I'm gonna make a mental note of that, or they saw them online. So a lot of it's not ruled out. Another thing was the timing of it. This was during a snowstorm, or I guess it snows all the time in Canada, so you can't really just say that. But but it was snowy outside. This was in the middle of winter, and it was late at night, and and this wasn't just some like mansion just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. It was sitting out in it was in a neighborhood. I forgot. I think it was called North York up there in Toronto. Shit, my bad. It was North York in Toronto where they found the where he lived. And Barry, let's see. Oh gosh. So this wasn't like, again, isolated case. People would have seen, but obviously no one's seen anything, so we don't know. But yeah, large luxury homes, spacious properties, trees around the area, very, very kind of isolated, all that stuff. Also, another thing I didn't mention for this whole thing was there was contractors also working on the home during all this. So lots of different people had access to the home. I don't think it was any real estate agent, or I don't think it was the contractors. Because again, I don't really think they would have a motive. I didn't see anything that would be like indicative of them having a motive. I would think it would have been someone who either saw the post online, or it was someone that the real estate agents were showing the home to that did it. Or at least, I appreciate it. Bless up. I'm just hanging out, just talking about this kind of stuff, but I appreciate it. Anyway, yeah, so I think so it must have been either someone who kind of got a lay of the land and knew what they were doing, or and then reported back to someone like, all right, here's where all the things are at. But yeah, I definitely think it was someone who knew it was the actual person that did it was a contracted killer. It wasn't like someone who did all that. Because a couple more theories we're going to get into a little bit later. But anyway, um, so yeah, so obviously it was someone who knew the lay of the land, who knew about the statues, who wanted to send a message and wanted to get away cleanly. Now there was this thing that was popping up around Canadian news media and true crime media. It was called the Walking Man. That's what they referred to him as. Apparently, down the way, there was a guy who seemed to walk by wearing all black at the time. I don't know if I can react to it. I don't have it all set up like that. Maybe tomorrow, not tomorrow. I'm not gonna go live tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow I'll get it all set up with my Twitch and Kick and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll be able to react to stuff like that live. But yeah, there was it. He was dubbed the Walking Man. That's what his name was, and he just was a guy dressed in all black. Now I watched the footage, and it doesn't seem like the guy. It could definitely be him, but from what I think, it wasn't some guy who just had a personal vendetta and wanted to do it. I think it was someone who was contracted to kill Barry. Mainly because, again, we don't know who did it. Like, if this was some random guy or a rich guy doing it, I think there'd be a lot more evidence and a lot more of a clear couple of suspects. Like, mainly, it's a lot of speculation just kind of floating around. And if you're just joining us, we're discussing Barry Sherman, and now we're gonna get into the theories, the favorite part of everything. That's where my juices get flowing. Ooh. But yeah. So there is footage of this guy about walking in a straight line, and it passed by a house a couple houses up from where the scene happened. The police think that it could be him. I don't think so, just because, for one, if you're an experienced guy, you're not going to be walking in the neighborhood, like where everyone can see you. They're like, what is this guy doing out here, right? Especially not getting yourself caught on camera. And I also think that the timing of it had to be opportune. Like, it had to be someone who knew, who took the window of opportunity and ran with it. And they did it cleanly too. That's what really freaks me out. Because, if you're for something like as serious as, unaliving someone, as killing someone, that's just something unless you're just some cold-hearted person, that's just something you just don't get away with cleanly, right? Especially in such a small window, right? Like if someone trying to sell their home and get out, right? Like, because usually if you're going to do it, you usually got time to plan, you learn their routine a little bit, and then you just wait for that opportune moment to do it if you want to get away with it. But hi, Cassandra. Oh, bye, Cassandra. Okay, fuck you, Cassandra. But it was just kind of that small window of opportunity, and they did it, and it was clean, almost perfect. Which is, I guess, why they deemed it a murder-suicide, but obviously it wasn't a murder-suicide. They clearly a homicide. Harassment and bullying. What the heck, man? TikTok is something else, dude. But anyway, I'm gonna continue because whatever, right? No one's gonna be on the live for 10 minutes. But yeah, so Barry, let's see where we were at the Walking Man. Oh yeah, normally, like if you really wanted to like do a hit, you wouldn't put yourself in front of a camera. And the way the guy was walking, it didn't seem like. I mean, if he was a cold, calculated person, he was beelining, right? He was going in a straight line, not looking around, right? And to be fair, it was kind of cold outside, so I wouldn't really be like looking around when it's cold. But if it was a calculated killer, they were doing the right thing, just walking straight, very slowly. They weren't like running. They weren't like, like, being frantic. They were just being calm, cool, stone face collecting, just walking, right? But I don't think that was him. I don't think the Walking Man footage showed someone, because I think, again, someone who was contracted, I think it was someone who was, hello? Okay. Someone who was contracted, they wouldn't walk in front of camera, they wouldn't risk it, right? But when you do have little to no evidence to go off of, I mean, every little thing is going to be analyzed. So, anyway, some people think he was a lookout. I don't think he was a lookout, because if he was a lookout, right? I mean, it could have been the situation where the group of people did it, and they all just went separately. Could have been a case. He could have been a lookout who was outside, and then once it happened, he got the call. He's like, okay, I'm gonna go this way, and then so and so go that way. Blah blah whatever. Could have been that situation. It could have been that situation. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying it's highly unlikely. I mean, the guy could definitely be a witness to the situation. And the fact that he's still a person of interest also kind of makes me, because like if that was you, if that was you there and you didn't do anything or had any involvement in it, you probably would step forward, say something. You know what I mean? But never know. Maybe the guy just doesn't realize it's him, and he didn't think about it, right? And could be it. But that's just a theory. Now, another interesting thing about this whole thing was it seemed like the goal was to kill, right? Like, usually with a lot of, like, it wasn't like a home invasion because there was nothing stolen. And again, the scene was staged and all that stuff. So it definitely wasn't like someone breaking into their home, unaliving them, and then stealing stuff. You know what I mean? Like, this was a contracted person. This was someone who had a job to do. That that's really what makes me think this was a contracted killing. Like, this doesn't seem like a guy going in there being mad at Barry, doing the job himself, and then dipping out. Like, this was someone who had a job to do and did their job well. Yeah. Yeah. Little forensic evidence left behind. The victims were subdued, and the killers definitely had time to stage the body. Yeah. It was contracted killing. Again, Barry was a very wealthy individual. Um, Again, if you watch the earlier part of the stream, you would know that he had lots of financial enemies, like sued a bunch of people. So it doesn't put it past me that someone wealthy, someone with a lot of influence, definitely would have done this. Yeah. And again, I don't think it was specifically the wealthy individual or individuals who did it. I think it was someone who got hired. And they definitely would have the money to do so and hire some world class professionals to do so. And all that stuff. And one thing that makes me think again, it was more than one, because it could have been. It could that guy who was walking in the video could have been the guy. Could have been. We don't know. Could have been the dude. But I don't think it was. If it was, I don't think he was acting alone, because it's hard to like take down two people, especially if you're not using a gun or using a knife or a pew pew and a sharp pointing thing. TikTok, don't take down my live. Um, but oh, what's up, Steve? Welcome to the live. We're talking about Barry Sherman, and Steve's gone. Cool. Anyway, but yeah, like if you're doing that, maybe you can do one or two. But again, not a lot of blood left around, so again, it's hard to tell in that instance. So yeah, I think it was two or three people. I don't think it was, you know, I don't think it was a single person. I just don't think it was a solo operation. I think this was a group of people doing this. Now, my original theory was the contractors were people outside of Canada, mainly because the likelihood of them getting caught, any suspicion thrown on them, and all that stuff is kind of, relevant, not relevant. I mean, it just makes the getaway easier because, like, if they're not connected to Canada, it's going to be harder to trace them, but who knows? Yeah. I think the main motive, though, however, was money related. Like, I think that's a given. I don't think that, you know, I don't think this was someone who I it's the only thing I can say on that. Yeah, the money. It definitely was a money thing. It was something. It was someone he screwed over in the past. I think they can't pinpoint exactly who it was, but it was definitely someone they pinpoint screwed him over in the past. He screwed over, or that he got the better of in the past. That's who I think. Now, the two people who I don't think it was his son. Apparently, I don't. I think it was a couple months before. He had to his Barry asked his son because Barry loaned him money to start a business, and then Barry had to ask for that money back. And you may think like, oh, rah rah rah, but again, Barry did say that he would give him the money back eventually once he got out of this tough situation. So I don't really think that in and of itself is enough evidence to say that it was uh sorry. That it was I'm just a little autistic. That it was his son and another person, his name was Frank D'Angelo. A lot of people some people speculated him because apparently before they had a little spat. But one thing I know about their relationship is Frank made a lot of movies, made a lot of films, and Barry gave him a lot of money for these films. So to me, it just doesn't make sense that Barry would unalive or Frank would kill his main source of income, his main source of, money. I just doesn't make any sense. But you never know. Could be the case. I just don't think he would. My personal opinion. But again, I could be wrong. But I don't think it was those two. I think those two are out the window. Not a factor. Now we're going to go into who I think it was. First people who it could be was radical Islamic terrorist. Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all fester on that one for a little bit. You may think like I'm just pulling that out of my ass, but remember how I said that they gave a lot of money, a lot of charities. They gave to a lot of Jewish organizations. It could have been someone who had deep ties to the Islamic faith who went and unalived him. Now, I don't buy this. Number one, because I'm not racist or whatever. I don't think that's the case. And number two, again, this seems like a very, very staged, like professionally done hit job. people who would have done that are the equivalent of online leftists. And again, I'm not talking mess about them, but I'm just saying like they ain't gonna do the job. They ain't gonna do the job. So the only people who would get that angry wanting to kill would be an online leftist mob. And I don't think one of them would have ran in there and did that. So, but possibility could be a thing. We're gonna let that fester. Um, Another big one could be one of the rivals, one of his business rivals. Um, Mainly because again, you get screwed over enough times, you build up that resentment. But the why I don't buy that one either. And the reason why is not because they couldn't they definitely had the motive, had the money motive, they had the resources to get the job done. But ask yourself this, would killing Barry Sherman really make all the stuff that happened to you go away? I mean, let's be so for real. If you wanted to defeat Barry Sherman, wouldn't you want to defeat his company so he has nothing left? Because everything was tied to that company, all his wealth, all his fortunes. You destroy that company, destroy Barry Sherman. I think it would have been smarter to go after the company, not Barry directly. Maybe you put his son, someone else in charge who was a lot more favorable to you and that not as much friction and competition. Yes. But if it was one of them, it would have to be someone who was deeply wronged by Barry. Deeply wronged. Some theories say that it could be someone on the inside, one of Barry's employees. I didn't really do a whole lot of research into that possibility. I mean, it could be. Again, you got to look at it from a lot of different angles. Definitely could have been. Definitely could have been someone who was on the inside, who maybe had personal beef with Barry. But again, I don't really see that being the case at all. Um, Another theory I had was, and this isn't fact, this isn't anything, just my personal theory, something I thought of was that this was a political thing. Because one thing I didn't get to mention during this whole spiel is that Barry was a lobbyist. Barry definitely gave money to political organizations to push certain agendas. I mean, if you're going to go through the court systems to get stuff done, you might as well try to get the law changed on it. You know what I mean? And put people who are favorable to you in positions of power. So Barry was a lobbyist. He helped get Justin Trudeau elected in 2015. I think that's when their elections are. I think in 2015, but it doesn't matter. And before his death, he was being investigated for political campaign violations with the super PAC that he was in. And the theory goes is that Justin Trudeau was going to get in trouble with it because he helped get Justin Trudeau into office. And so he's like, I'm going to kill Barry to get heat off of me. But again, according to my research, it's not really that plausible, mainly because Justin would have not gotten in trouble for that. So it doesn't really make sense. But again, when you're looking at something with so little evidence, you have to look at every single possibility. I mean, it's not crazy to think about, like, that it could be a possibility to some degree. But here's the thing that I think happened and who I think it was. I personally think that it was one of the Winter cousins. The Winter children. I call them Winter children's Winter cousins. It was one of them. And the reason why I say that is because they have the motivation. Again, they got screwed out of the company that their father left them. The uncle of Barry Sherman got screwed out of that fortune. Barry made it up to them and said, well, I'm going to pay you some money for you to live on, give you a little bit of an allowance. We cut that off, and they sued him over it. And for 6 years, they were in court and lost. Coincidentally, a couple months before the murders. A little bit of a chin scratcher right there. A little bit of a chin scratcher right there. But, you know, and I think it makes the most sense because two things I want to bring up. They asked one of the cousins, his name was Kerry Winters. And Kerry Winters, when asked about this, said he had fantasized about unaliving Barry Sherman, but it wasn't him. He happened to be watching Peaky Blinders that night and went to a anonymous meeting that night. Take that what you will. But something when I was finished wrapping up, I didn't have a lot of time to, finish this story like I wanted to. I wish I would have had more time to really sit and research it. But one thing that really stood out to me was this little tidbit of information. Remember how I said that at first it was a murder-suicide? Well, apparently Carrie had a conversation with Barry back in the 90s. And Barry had apparently told him that he was looking for someone to unalive his wife. Right? Like, so it was a murder-suicide and you bring that up. Again, it could have been just the timing of it, the way it was all like that. Maybe he brings it up as motivation, like, oh, maybe it, you know what I mean? That it could be what it is. But it's just kind of interesting, that he mentions that. And when the Winter kids heard, when Barry's own son heard about that, he was like, that's slanderous and hurtful. So it makes you kind of wonder, right? And that's who I think. I think it was one of the, could have been all four of them. Could be just one acting independently. But to me, that's who makes the most sense. I don't think it was some random person. I don't think it was a business rival. Don't think it was a radical Islamic jihadist. I think it was one of the Winter children, the Winter cousins. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We've been live for over an hour. I feel like that's enough for today. I had a more enjoyable time researching. I'm going to research another case that I covered, and I'm going to talk about it. This one has a definite motive, definite person. So don't miss out on it. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys all soon. Bye-bye now.